Part 16. Weird Star Witch. Author, White Silver Black Iron. Chapter 152. Rudolph and Yvonne returned to their home at 15 Paget Street. The construction team first received Rudolph's advance payment for the renovation, but they hadn't seen the owner for a while, so they left after finishing their work. Some of the rooms were new and some were old, but even so, Rudolph and Yvonne felt very familiar here. After simply tidying up the master bedroom, the two prepared to stay here for one night. Originally, they wanted to do something, but Yvonne fell asleep quickly on the familiar bed. Rudolph was not sleepy for the time being, so he sat by the window, looking out the window, looking at the night view of Lehmantown. In fact, there was not much night view to see. There were few buildings with lights on in Lehmantown, and the Red Church was one of them. Rudolph looked in the direction of the Red Church and squinted slightly. In the basement of the Red Church, Vanya opened his eyes. The vampires are all nocturnal creatures, and I don't know when Vanderlyn will remember him. Vanya didn't wait for long. In the second half of the night, footsteps sounded outside the door. Two blood servants came to the basement first. They brought buckets, rags, and a stretcher. The two blood servants made preparations first, waiting for Vanderlyn's arrival. Blood servants are the lowest level of vampires, and they are servants created by vampires to serve themselves. Even blood servants have a lifespan of 150 years. The two blood servants saw that Vanderlyn had not come yet, and chatted quietly. "Has Vanya ever looked at us straight before?" No, he relied on the fact that he was a level 1 vampire and an assistant priest, but he did a lot of trouble for us. So what if he is a level 1 vampire? If he offended Mr. Vanderlyn, he would still die like a stinky rat. I'm worried about another thing. Will Mr. Vanderlyn kill us for doing these things for us? Can vampires commit suicide? It sounds strange no matter how you listen. SHH. Keep your voice down. The two blood servants hurriedly looked at the entrance steps of the basement, fearing that Vanderlyn had already gone down to the basement. The vampires walked silently, making it hard to guard against. Fortunately, Vanderlyn still didn't come. Hey, but if we don't do it and go against Mr. Vanderlyn's will, can there be a good result? Who made us want to prolong our lives and live forever? Everything has a price, and becoming a servant is the price they pay for not wanting to die. Outside the door of the basement, a mouse was looking up at the direction of the stairs. 10 minutes later, Vanderlyn walked down the stairs. Sure enough, the vampires walked silently, without any footsteps. The mouse blinked, and Rudolph's reminder sounded in Vanya's mind. He knew someone was coming in. Two blood servants opened the door of the basement for Vanderlyn and let Vanderlyn enter the basement first. As soon as he entered the basement, he smelled a foul smell. Blood should be drunk when it is fresh and warm, and dried blood stains will only emit a bad smell. Vanderlyn walked in, and the blood servant closed the door. At this moment, dozens of blood bats suddenly flew out silently from the shadow of the ceiling and from the angle between the wall and the ground. Behind the three people, there were densely packed translucent blood mist blood bats, exuding the breath of death. Vanderlyn had just taken a few steps inside when he suddenly smelled a little fresh blood. It shouldn't be like this. How could there be a smell of fresh blood in the stench? Vanya's wound was still bleeding fresh blood. For a moment, Vanderlyn's scalp was numb. He had seen that kind of blood bat in his peripheral vision. That kind of wizard's witchcraft, strange blood bats. If he could see blood bats in his peripheral vision, it proved that behind him. Vanderlyn turned around suddenly and saw dozens of blood bats had exploded behind him. Some blood bats left only a faint blood mist after exploding, and some blood bats were still flying towards him. It was no use holding his breath at this time, and Vanderlyn's pupils were purple. He never thought that he would be attacked by witchcraft here. But where is the wizard? Soon, Vanderlyn thought of the only possibility. Bloodlines shot out from Vanderlin's body and were about to stab Vanya. Vanya suddenly stood up from the ground and raised his hands to the three people in front of him. Purple flower fire technique. Purple flames first appeared on the bodies of the two blood servants. The bloodlines that stabbed Vanya could not complete the attack at this time, because Vanderlin wanted to use the bloodlines to extract all the toxins in his body. Just like last time, bloodlines flowed out from Vanderlin's wrists, nostrils, and mouth like hair, and purple flames had already appeared on the bloodlines at this time. The same trick cannot be used twice on Rudolf. Vanya took a step forward, and more blood bats flew towards Vanderlin. Vanderlin opened his bat wings behind him and was about to blow away the blood bats around him. At this moment, Vanderlin's face showed an incredible expression again. His bat wings were actually blocked. It was still blocked by Vanya's bat wings. This made him completely unable to flap his bat wings. When did Vanya become a level 2 vampire? Could it be that there is an ancient coffin in the basement of the Red Church in Lehman Town? Countless impossibilities made Vanderlin completely lose his ability to think. Vanya, who was suddenly promoted to a level 2 vampire, took the initiative everywhere. Dozens of blood bats pounced on Vanderlin and bit him. Vanya was like another Rudolf, a puppet who could use all of Rudolf's witchcraft. Purple flames rose from Vanderlin, and this proud sarcophagus vampire died in the basement. After Vanderlin died, he left behind two relics, one is the level 2 Batwing, and the other is the level 2 Bloodline. When Vanya touched the Batwing, just like Rudolf himself touched it, the relic disappeared in Vanya's hand. This is the second Batwing Rudolf has obtained, so the corresponding bright star of Scorpio in the star map has collected this relic. The bloodline is Vanderlin's blood vessels. The bloodline that has just been burned is not the key. It can be made again after burning. Vanderlin's own blood vessels are the relics. Vanderlin's body was a little burnt, the skin was crispy, and the inside was still good. Vanya skillfully cut a series of cuts on Vanderlin's body and took out the arteries and veins in his body. After getting the bloodline also disappeared from Vanya's hand. Rudolf in front of the window closed his eyes, and on the star map in his mind, a meteor streaked across the sky. This time, the meteor did not fly to Scorpio, but to Pisces. Pisces is also the second constellation that Rudolf learned. There are 15 bright stars on the constellation line of Pisces. This meteor went straight to the first bright star of Pisces, Pisces Sigma. Pisces 1/15, Pisces Sigma was lit up. 3 suspended stars fell from Pisces Sigma. Level 2 Magic Weapon Bloodline, Level 2 Blood Supplementation, Level 2 Ancient Coffin Sleeping Method. Rudolf does not need to sleep in the ancient coffin, and blood supplementation is not very useful for Rudolf. Without any hesitation, Rudolf chose the Level 2 Magic Weapon Bloodline. He did not plan to bury another set of blood vessels in his body, which sounded a bit creepy, but he could give this magic weapon to his puppet Vanya. Rudolf's voice sounded in Vanya's mind. Do whatever you want to do, you don't have much time left. Weird Star Witch. Author, White Silver Black Iron. Chapter 153. After a while, the door of the basement was opened. Vanya came out of the door. At this time, he had arranged his clothes and washed the blood off his neck with water. Vanya walked up the stairs slowly. The whole Red Church works at night and sleeps during the day. The free bloodletting treatment in the Red Church is only carried out at night. Vanya has been here for decades and is very familiar with the Red Church. With the guidance of the rats along the way, Vanya bypassed the sight of all the blood servants and came directly to the side door of the Red Church's prayer hall. A blood servant carried a plate and walked towards the prayer hall of the Red Church. On the plate was a cup of fresh blood that had just been collected tonight. This was Mr. Pulley's midnight snack. The blood servant was thinking about what had happened recently in the Red Church. Several deacons died in succession, including the new Reiner, Vanya, and the deacon who died in the suburbs. This is a crisis, but also an opportunity. All the blood servants are ready to move. I wonder if Mr. Pulley will choose the most obedient blood servant among them and develop him into a deacon. Thinking of this, the blood servant was a little excited. Becoming an acolyte also means becoming a level 1 vampire, and being able to sleep in the family's castle once. He looked at the goblet carefully, and there was no dirty spot on the goblet. He walked very steadily and slowly, making sure that the blood always maintained a horizontal plane and would not stain the cup wall due to shaking. He moved his shoulders slightly to make his shoulders softer so that he could bend lower in a while. At this moment, a hand suddenly reached out from behind him. The throat of the blood servant was strangled tightly. 10 seconds later, Vanya sighed a little. He didn't know what obsession this blood servant had. He was so dedicated that even death did not make him lose control of the plate. The goblet on the plate did not fall, and the blood did not spill. Vanya changed into the short robe of the blood servant, held the plate, and bowed his head to enter the church. He bent forward deeply, and Vanya's face was completely parallel to the ground, just like when he had the first opportunity to serve Mr. Pulley decades ago. This road is so familiar that Vanya can tell the difference between each floor. Even if he lowers his head, he knows that he will reach the pulpit of the Red Church in 13 steps. Mr. Pulley opened his eyes and glanced at the goblet next to him. He took a sip and looked at the blood servant strangely. It was strange that the blood servant did not retreat. Normally, the blood servant would leave consciously after delivering the midnight snack. Nothing in the Red Church can be hidden from Pulley. He knew that the blood servants had broken their heads because of the position of the deacon, but they just didn't make trouble in front of him. While drinking fresh blood, he stared at the back of the deacon's head and neck, thinking about how to punish this bold blood servant. However, Pulley suddenly had a bad premonition. He felt that the figure of the blood servant seemed familiar. At this time, the blood servant also raised his head. Pulley's pupils suddenly contracted. Who did he see? He saw Vanya. Vanya, who had been killed by Vanderlyn. When Vanya saw the blood was dwindling, his red pupils were filled with uncontrollable resentment and the joy of revenge. Pulley suddenly felt his whole body numb, his tongue was also numb, and he couldn't say a word. The blood is poisonous. The glass goblet fell from Pulley's hand, but a bat wing suddenly stretched out from behind Vanya. The bat wing bent and cushioned the goblet when it landed, so that the goblet did not fall to the ground. Pulley was even more surprised. At this moment, he was completely confused and had no idea why the current situation had occurred. Didn't Vanderlyn kill Vanya? Did Vanderlyn and Vanya plot against him together? Even if it was poison, the effect would not be so obvious for an apostle like the vampire. What made Pulley desperate was that the toxin in his body was so violent, even the legendary scorpion toxin was no more than this. The toxicity was not only strong, but also kept increasing. He only took a sip of the poisonous blood, but now the toxicity in his body was constantly increasing. Vanya watched Priya fall slowly, watched Priya lie on the ground, watched Priya twitching on the ground, with satisfaction on her face. Logically, I should have left immediately after I succeeded. But, I hated it too much. I really hated it too much. I hate wizards, I hate Vanderlyn, but, you know, Mr. Priya, I hate you the most. When you came to the church in Lehman Town, I greeted you at the door, and from that day on, I have been serving you. It's been a long time, so long that I can't remember exactly how many 50 years it has been. For more than 50 years, I have carefully served you every day and solved every little thing in your life for you. For more than 50 years, I would carefully wipe the chair you sit on every day in the evening. For more than 50 years, you have to sit on the chair every day. I carefully opened every door for you. Do you know the feeling of being afraid of the door bolt making a noise? Do you know the feeling of being relieved when I see you go out without slowing down? Even stone can be ground into the shape I want in 50 years. You are not my blood father, but I treat you better than my blood father. But what about you? When I was about to die, you didn't say a word for me. Pulley. I hate you the most. I can't bear to miss seeing your astonishment, I can't bear to miss watching you die. Not only will I poison you to death, I will also use the most vicious punishment to humiliate you. Pulley had lost the ability to resist. He could only sit on the ground, making a ho-ho sound in his throat. Vanya squatted down, his eyes close to Pulley, not missing any details on Pulley's face. Not long after, Pulley died quietly in the Red Church. Because no blood servant dared to disturb Mr. Pulley, no one found that the Red Priest Pulley of Leemantown was dead. After doing all this, Vanya sat in the first row of the Red Church and whispered to the statue of the ancestor of the Blood Clan. And Pulley's body was lying at his feet. It was not until the early morning that Vanya opened his eyes again. A Blood Clan spread his wings and hovered on the roof of the Red Church, as if he was afraid that others would not know him. At this time, the hard-working cleaners in the town, or the hired workers who bought goods for the shops, had already started a busy day. Many people saw a man with bat wings behind him hovering on the roof of the Red Church. He was holding another person in his hand. The man with bat wings actually lifted another person to the roof of the Red Church. There are two symmetrical spire attics on the roof of the Red Church. On the top of the attic, there is the Red Church's lightning rod. This Red Church is very solid. In order to prevent lightning strikes, a tall iron lightning rod is installed on the highest spire. Vanya grabbed Pri and pressed Pri hard against the lightning rod. Pri, who was already dead, was pierced in the abdomen by the lightning rod. He faced the sky, with his hands and legs hanging down, which made him look like a reverse bent prawn. Vanya kicked Pri, causing Pri to spin on the lightning rod, and also causing Pri's pale face to face the east, towards the direction of the rising sun. In the small square in front of the Red Church, the blood servants shouted one by one, "Vanya! That's Vanya! Vanya betrayed his family. He murdered Mr. Pri." After doing all this, Vanya still hovered above the Red Church, admiring his masterpiece. At this time, Pri was like a locust pierced by a needle, which made Vanya satisfied. Vanya flew to Putch Street again, where there was Pulley's house. Number 13 Putch Street, the house that Rudolph hated the most, was set on fire by Vanya. Under the effect of Leo Witch language flame, the wooden house was set on fire. Starting from the first floor, the fire spread quickly, burning to the second floor and the roof. Many castle bats flew out of the flames. Some of Pulley's castle bats were kept in the Red Church, and some were kept here. The hatred in his heart made Vanya not let go of these bats, killing them one by one. After doing all this, Vanya flapped his bat wings and flew away from Leemantown in a high-profile manner. Along the way, he picked Luffy to let more people see him. For a time, the whole Leemantown was boiling. The rebellious vampires actually nailed the Red Priest Mr. Pulley to the lightning rod on the top of the church. Not only that, this rebellious vampire also burned the vampire industry and burned number 13 Putch Street. When the first rays of sunlight in the morning shone on the top of the spire of the Red Church, Pulley's face was burned by the sun first, and burns appeared on his face. The skin peeled off piece by piece, and a faint white smoke rose. The Blood Clan is a natural immortal species, but this comes at a price. They have no daytime. During the daytime when there is sunlight, the Blood Clan can only sleep, otherwise the sun will burn their skin. They also need to sleep frequently, which makes their longevity quality not very high. After catching the Blood Clan, the best way to execute them is to expose them to the sun for 3 days. No matter how powerful the Blood Clan is, they will be exposed to the sun and die. Rudolph stood by the window, watching Vanya fly away, and his heart was greatly relieved. His identity as a wizard was exposed, but Rudolph did not allow himself to be the first bird to stand out in Leemantown. The first bird to stand out is easy to be beaten to death. The way to solve the problem is to create another first bird with a bigger head. From today on, the Blood Clan trader Vanya will be more popular than Rudolph and Ivan. The street outside was a bit noisy. The houses on Paget Street were all single-family villas, and there was a fireproof distance between the two houses. Many people stood on the street, watching the fire grow bigger and bigger. Some kind-hearted people wanted to put out the fire, but the fire was too big and could not be put out at all. For many fires, the final way to put out the fire is to wait for the flames to burn all the combustibles. Yvonne was half asleep when she heard the noisy noise outside. Rudolph came to the bed and hugged her shoulders. "Sleep a little longer, it's okay." Hearing Rudolph's voice, Yvonne fell into a deep sleep again. Rudolph also lay down, ready to have a good sleep. Let the chaos ferment for a while, and the vampires should do some work. Keep a close eye on the rebellious vampires, and don't always hold him for no reason. This move diverts the trouble. I hope the Ravno family will be satisfied. Sheriff Claude woke up at Madame Jessica's house. He took a telescope and looked at the red church in the distance, then looked at the direction of Paget Street, and said to Madame Jessica beside him, "Although I have no evidence, I think these things were done by Rudolph. That wizards are very powerful, but what I saw was clearly a level 2 vampire causing trouble. How could it be Rudolph? Believe me, it is definitely related to Rudolph. I have to say that Rudolph did a great job. Now the vampires have something to do." Zack appeared on Paget Street at this time, holding a breakfast in his hand. He came to the back door of 15 Page Street, rang the doorbell, and saw that it was Rudolph who opened the door. Rudolph took the breakfast and handed Zack some money. "You need to run for lunch too." "No problem." Rudolph and Yvonne stayed until dark before coming out of the house. As night fell, Rudolph stood at the door, and Yvonne rubbed Rudolph's waist. It was really comfortable to be at home, but it was a bit hard on the waist. Staying at home, there was nothing to do, just admire the hips. This time, they didn't stay long and left the town directly. At the edge of a forest, Rudolph saw Vanya hanging upside down on a tree. Vanya spread his bat wings and flew towards Rudolph. Vanya was very fast, but Rudolph was not worried at all. After stopping in front of Rudolph, Vanya did not resist at all, allowing Rudolph to raise his hand and touch his forehead. With this press, there will be no Vanya anymore, only the Scorpio puppet. In just a moment, just like the relics disappeared, Vanya also disappeared in Rudolph's palm. In Rudolph's star map, under the Scorpio star field, there is a star beam hanging, and at the end of the star beam is a light cocoon with a faint glow. In the past, there was only Vanya's soul in the light cocoon, but now, Vanya's body also appears in the light cocoon. This is Rudolph's Scorpio puppet, a level 2 vampire. Vanya, who has Rudolph's star power, can use Rudolph's witchcraft, and can be regarded as another Rudolph. Rudolph obtained 3 relics: Pulley's Batwings, Vanderland's Batwings, and Vanderland's Bloodline. "Yvonne, I'll make you a pair of Batwings, how about it? A flying white wolf, isn't it cooler?" "Okay. The basic material of the Batwings needs to be leather. I've prepared it for you." After that, Rudolph took out a leather neck ring. First put the collar on Yvonne's neck. The white neck with the black collar is very beautiful. After drawing the astrological triangle, Rudolph quickly made the witchcraft Batwings for Yvonne. After Yvonne put on the collar and had the means to fly, she flew into the sky and started playing. After watching Yvonne fly to a high place, a level 2 bloodline appeared on Rudolph's hand. After taking a quick look at the information of the level 2 bloodline, Rudolph hesitated. This witchcraft weapon almost created a new vascular system in the body. The bloodline needs to be attached to the arteries and veins, and is usually warmed by blood. It is pierced from the wrist during battle. The tip of the bloodline is extremely sharp, like a steel needle, and the bloodline itself is very tough. Rudolf does not want to make such a big change to his body, so Rudolf will not use this witchcraft weapon himself. Soon, the disappeared Vanya appeared again. After drawing the astrological triangle, Vanya stood in a circle of the astrological triangle. The bloodline was placed in another circle. The witchcraft used in this magic weapon is the Sagittarius witchcraft, stab. The main attack power of the level 2 bloodline also comes from the stabbing at the tip. This magic weapon has a strong growth potential. When the vampires are at a high level, they will have bloodlines of the corresponding level. Now only 2 bloodlines can be shot out from the wrist, and the distance is no more than 8 meters, but it is enough for Vanya. The witchcraft of Sagittarius descended, and soon, this magic weapon was made. Bloodlines appeared in Vanya's body, which made Rudolf's puppet more powerful. 2 in 1. You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. Weird Star Witch. Author, White Silver Black Iron. Chapter 154. The only known way to use other apostles to fight is to control the corpses of apostles. Now there is an information gap, and no one knows that this is Rudolf's puppet. Therefore, Vanya is now the perfect scapegoat. In order to prevent others from linking Vanya with Rudolf, he decided not to give Vanya any magic weapon he had used. For example, the endless gun, the cane of pain, etc., at least for this period of time. Let Vanya be more independent. Rudolf saw Ivan in the sky still flying around and having fun. The bat wings took Ivan up and down, sometimes quickly across the sky, and sometimes rose high and turned into a small dot. After a while, Ivan returned to the ground. The bat wings slowly shrank, the webbed feet disappeared, the skeleton began to shrink, slowly turned into a belt, and turned back into a neck ring again. How is it? Does flying feel good? Very good. Rudolf said, this magic weapon bat wings has another advantage, the size is controllable. This magic weapon will convert the power of werewolves into the power of vampires. The bat wings are full of blood vessels. If a small amount of apostle power is sent into it, the cortex of the neck ring will slowly expand. You can even try to control its shape and turn it into a cloak. Ivan's face was full of question marks. What? It will become bigger when it is congested? And it can also become a cloak. A bit strange, but this is what I mean. This magic weapon uses 2 magic languages, Sagittarius magic language flying and Pisces magic language alien, so its shape is controllable. Rudolf demonstrated that his magic weapon is a leather belt, which can be turned into a simple cloak after it becomes bigger, and it can also be transformed into a hood. It is a very practical magic weapon. When you are in werewolf mode, you can use bat wings to turn into a flying werewolf. When you are finished transforming, it will still exist. If you can skillfully turn it into a cloak, you can avoid the embarrassment of having no clothes after you are finished transforming. Ivan was even happier to hear that this magic weapon can also cover the body. As a girl, it is always very embarrassing to be naked every time after transformation, which is one of the reasons why she is somewhat resistant to transformation. Rudolf continued, for me, this is a huge loss. I prefer to cover you with clothes myself. But I still hope that you can be more free, transform whenever you want, and you won't be exposed after the transformation. Ivan tried to slowly input the power of the werewolf into the neck ring. Sure enough, the neck ring slowly grew larger, and the direction of the growth could be controlled by the power of the werewolf. Soon, the neck ring turned into a leather cloak. Let's go to the remote farm that Sir Jennifer prepared for us, hide in that farm, avoid the storm first, and then see what we do next. The two walked away from Lehman town again. At this time, the town of Lehman was in a mess. A whole day was enough time for many things to ferment. The vampires of the Revno family could not come out during the day, so they could only wait until the evening to deal with the affairs of Lehman. This meant that Pulley was nailed to the top of the church and exposed to the sun for a whole day. The sun had just set, and there was no direct light. The last sunset glow illuminated Pulley with a dark red light. His skin was wrinkled and full of flesh folds. His exposed face was full of ravines and burning black and red. Pulley's appearance could not help but remind people of a bat called the strange-faced bat, which was also full of flesh folds and red. The facial features were shrunk in the flesh folds, which made people feel sick. A vampire deacon went to the police station to notify the police station to come to the scene. Of course, Sheriff Claude would not come, but the old police officer Baby. Baby came over in a hurry, looked at Pulley on the top of the church, and didn't even want to enter the church door. Before the vampires spoke, he said, "The situation is what you see. If there is nothing else, I will leave first." Old Baby had half turned around and was ready to go off work. He felt that it was unnecessary to call him over. "Wait," the person in charge of this operation, the vampire deacon Vito, frowned and called Baby, "Aren't you going to say anything about the riot last night? You vampires beat yourselves, what should I say? Is it my turn to say? What should I say?" "Wait," Vito stopped Baby, who was in a hurry to leave. Sam behind Baby was also unhappy. How could he stop Baby from going off work? If Baby worked overtime for a long time, he would be very unhappy. If Baby was unhappy, they, the patrolmen, would not feel good either. "Then why didn't you put Mr. Pulley down immediately?" Baby pushed down Vito's arm that was holding him. "Do you know what it means to protect the scene? If I put Pulley down, how can you find clues about the murderer? Besides, I can't fly, how can I put Pulley down for you? You vampires hung it up by yourselves, can't you put it down by yourself? Where did the murderer go?" "The murderer flew away, how would I know where he went? Aren't you afraid of offending our Ravno family?" Old Baby had already walked a few steps, and turned to look at Vito. "What? Do you want to start a blood feud with me? My parents have passed away for 30 years, and I have no children, no relatives, and no relatives. What do you want to retaliate against me for? If you have the ability, you can take down the Alchemy Council. The only thing I can say is that I am an alchemist. Then I have to wish you good luck. It's worth watching such a big scene once." After that, Baby left without looking back. Vito's eyelids twitched, obviously he was furious, but facing such an unscrupulous person, he had no way to deal with it. He turned to ask other deacons, "Do we have any other power in Lehman Town?" "Yes, I know that the casino in the town is ours, and the boss is called Xuanhuan. He was the first to inform the city's Red Church about Vanya. Let him come." One vampire deacon went to find Xuanhuan, and another vampire deacon flew into the air and put Pulley down. The police station was indifferent to what happened in the Red Church, which proved the attitude of the police station. The bat wings on Pulley's back were torn off alive, leaving terrible wounds. The deacon prepared a coffin and planned to transport Pulley back to the castle in a few days. After Vito entered the Red Church, he found that all the blood servants in the Red Church were dead. Where is Vanderlyn? The vampires have another important figure in Lehman Town, the level 2 vampire Vanderlyn. The deacons went to search the Red Church, and soon they found the dead Vanderlyn in the basement. Vanderlyn died miserably, with all his blood vessels picked out and the bat wings on his back torn off. Vanderlyn, who was most likely to be promoted to level 3 vampire within 20 years, and a genius valued by the family, died in Lehman Town. 20 years is a very short time for vampires, and it is almost at hand. Vanderlyn's first embrace came from Hera, the high priest of the Red Church of the city, a level 3 vampire. When he came, Hera specifically told the deacons to obey Vanderlyn's command and orders. It was impossible to command, Vanderlyn was dead. Vito watched Vanderlyn being put into the coffin, and was somewhat glad that he had one less competitor. Soon, Xuanhuan came to the Red Church. Vito sat in the church, and under his feet were those blood servants who died miserably. These blood servants were not qualified to be buried around the castle, and would be taken to the suburbs and buried in the cemetery of Lehman Town. Xuanhuan, tell me what you saw yesterday. Xuanhuan felt that this year was too difficult and he encountered all kinds of strange things. After organizing his words, he said, Mr. Deacon, last night, I first saw a fire on Paget Street. After sending someone to inquire, I learned that number 13 Paget Street was on fire. I was shocked, because number 13 Paget Street is the property of the Ravenel family. Then, a Blood Clan trader flew over half of the town of Lehman. I looked through a telescope and found that the trader was Vanya, the former deacon of the Red Church. Later, I found out that Vanya was burning down number 13 Paget Street. Before, Mr. Pulley had been captured on the top of the church, and he cruelly impaled Mr. Pulley on the lightning rod. I knew the situation was serious, and felt that the main industries of the Blood Clan in Lehman Town were attacked, so I quickly wrote a letter and sent it to the Red Church in the city. After thinking, Vito signaled all the Blood Clan deacons to come over. Investigate. We must find out Vanya's whereabouts. In addition to revenge for Vanderlyn and Pulley, we must also find out why Vanya was promoted from a level 1 Blood Clan to a level 2 Blood Clan. The promotion of the Blood Clan must be sleeping in an ancient coffin. Vanya has a bigger secret. Weird Star Witch. Author, White Silver Black Iron. Chapter 155. Sir Jennifer's new cavalry captain, Knight Squire Archer, rode out of the castle in the middle of the night with 3 cavalrymen. They will go to a farm's warehouse, where they will hand over 2 pairs of light armor. This was the first mission Archer had received, so he was particularly concerned about it, but he was also a little confused. He didn't know why the butler told him not to look too much, put down his light armor and left directly. There is nothing special about these 2 pairs of light armors. Patrol cavalry all wear this type of standard equipment. Archer didn't ask any more questions. Many nobles had secrets, and some secrets were better left unknown. Soon, Archer came to the edge of a farm owned by Sir, put 2 pairs of light armor in the warehouse, and turned around to leave. When he left, he still looked back curiously. This glance frightened him greatly. As a down-and-out knight squire, Archer encountered obstacles everywhere, so he paid special attention to details. He saw 2 people walking towards the warehouse from a distance. Even though they were just from behind, Archer immediately recognized the 2 of them. Before he entered Lehman Town, he delivered letters to 2 people. Later he found out that one of them was a terrifying werewolf and the other was an even more terrifying wizard. And the 2 people walking towards the light armor were the 2 people who asked him to deliver the message. He will not forget that he is a rich man who can be paid 1 silver shield for delivering a message. Archer swallowed, his heartbeat quickened and he didn't calm down for a long time. Sure enough, the noble castle is full of dirty secrets. Who would have thought that such a beautiful Sir Jennifer would be related to a wizard? As they walked further and further, Archer felt that his fear was unnecessary. He is just a knight's retinue. He will not leave any relics after his death, so the wizard will not waste his time. What should I do if I want to be promoted to level 1 knight in the future? What if I get lucky and get promoted soon? Archer was caught up in the worries of happiness. He never thought that one day he would worry about what he would do if he was promoted too quickly. Rudolph and Yvonne stood in front of the 2 sets of light armor, satisfied with the light armor only. The knight's helmet with exposed eyes allows Rudolph and Yvonne to move around easily. The mail that protects the chest and back is of acceptable weight and will not affect movement. And, of course, 2 broadswords. After putting them on, Rudolph and Yvonne became the patrol cavalry of the Jazz Castle and could walk openly outside the town of Lehman. there was a house on this farm that was specially prepared for them. The farmer just thought it was a place for patrol cavalry to rest and didn't ask any questions. The identity of patrol cavalry is only a temporary identity and will no longer be used sooner or later. Now I am just using this identity for a transition. Tonight they stayed on the farm. Ivan adapts well to life on the farm, while Rudolph suffers from insomnia. As he closed the window, Rudolph saw swarms of bats wandering in the sky. The Ryevno family must be searching for Vanya like crazy. No matter how many castle bats there are, it's useless. Vanya is in Rudolph's star map. A bat colony may contain hundreds or thousands of bats. This time, Vito, the vampire deacon, brought 5 bat colonies. Swarms of these bats spread out across the town of Lehman, looking for possible targets. Vito took 5 deacons and thousands of castle bats and flew all night. The bats were too tired to fly, but they got nothing. Near dawn, Vito saw a man at the gate of the town, Police Sergeant Claude. Claude smoked a cigarette. This vampire deacon, according to the Red Church agreement between the Ryevno family and the Alchemy Council, you should not reveal your identity in such a high-profile manner. This is not the castle of your vampire family. Vito was not afraid of this police chief. Chief Claude, if you have any questions, please consult the city Red Church. Our actions have been approved by the high priest. After saying that, Vito led the deacons into the town. After they left, Sheriff Claude put out his cigarette. If you ask this question, it's better to close the door and let the dogs out, so Rudolph won't be unhappy, right? Probably not, he can't hear it anyway. In the following week, Vito continued to fly around the town of Lehman with the butler and the bat, but the result was the same, still nothing. It seemed that Vanya had completely escaped from the family. In the police station, Baby came to the sheriff's office. Claude, are you just looking at the vampires being so arrogant? I can't stand it anymore. The police chief said nonchalantly, it's okay, they are about to suffer retribution. On the night of the 7th day, Vito and all the vampire deacons sat in the Red Church with tired faces. Even the vampires cannot accept such high-intensity flying. Vito looked at the other deacons, and could no longer see the elegance of the vampires on their faces. Vito had to make a decision. Report to the family that Vanya has escaped from the family's territory and see if the new priest has any new ideas. After learning that the Blood Tribe was going to send a new priest to the Red Church, Chief Claude walked onto the rooftop of the police station. At this time, there was an owl on the rooftop. This owl was left by Rudolph. Sheriff Claude tied a note to the owl's leg. The owl flew into the sky to find Rudolph. The owl flew for a long time and landed on Rudolph's shoulder. Opening the note, there was a line written on a typewriter, pay attention and control the scale. I think your previous scale was very good. Although the words were typed on a typewriter, Rudolph knew that this was what Sheriff Claude meant. Ivan couldn't help but ask, what does the sheriff want to do? It seems that the sheriff wants us to make another move. Last time, he took the initiative to tell me that Lehman Town and even Fabreau City may be ruled by the vampires in the future. There are a group of people who don't want to see such an outcome, and the sheriff is one of them. I think the sheriff and his people want to do something about the vampires. Rudolph released the owl and let it fly back to the police station again. The owl was fed too fat by Kelita and it was a bit slow to fly. 3 days later, Vanya, wearing a hood, appeared in Lehman Town again. The Ravno family sent a new priest to Lehman Town, and today is the day when the new priest takes office. The new priest organized his first free bloodletting treatment in Lehman Town. This is a benefit of the Red Church. If you have a headache, fever, cold, or dizziness, you can come to the Red Church for treatment. The new priest is a young vampire, but unfortunately, his sleep is carried out in an ancient wooden coffin, so his upper limit is very low. The biggest problem with wooden coffins is that they cannot be preserved for a long time. Ancient wooden coffins are damaged to varying degrees, and the sleeping effect is very poor. Becoming a priest of the Red Church is the best job for these level 2 vampires with no future. The new priest smiled and performed bloodletting therapy for the people in Lehman Town who were queuing up one by one. Fresh blood flowed into the stone basin next to the sacrifice. At the bottom of the stone basin was a 4-leaf clover-shaped stone, covering the hole at the bottom of the stone basin. The collected blood would flow into the blood pool of the church through the hole. There was a turbo fan at the bottom of the blood pool to ensure that the blood in the blood pool was always flowing, and there would be blood servants constantly adding anticoagulants into it. The blood would be put into containers and sent to the Red Church in Fabreau City for the people of the Revno family to eat. The new priest held a sharp scalpel in one hand and held the hand of a townsman in the other. "Why are your hands so cold? You need to bleed more, so that the hematopoietic stem cells can fully stimulate their hematopoietic ability." The new priest's blade slashed at the man's arm. He would only make a small cut in the vein, which would not harm his life. Although arterial blood is tastier than venous blood, the new priest had just arrived and was ready to get familiar with the town before increasing the intensity of bloodletting. The blade cut the man's skin, and the new priest waited for the blood to flow out. After a few seconds, the new priest realized the problem. Where was the blood? He tried to use his thumb to gently apply force to open the wound, but what came out of the wound was not blood, but 2 blood lines. Weird Star Witch. Author, White Silver Black Iron. Chapter 156. The line of blood was like a steel needle, piercing the new priest's throat as fast as a black shadow, only splattering some blood at the first moment. The bloodline is like a high-speed conduit, rapidly sucking the blood of the new priest. Meanwhile, the new priest could not move. His lips opened and closed silently, looking desperately at the person in front of him. Suddenly there was no chatter from the new priest in front of her. The middle-aged aunt behind Vanya felt a little strange. She turned her body and looked in front of her. The new priest was undergoing bloodletting treatment when a thick red thread penetrated his throat. After being stunned for a second or two, the middle-aged woman no longer had a headache, her brain was no longer hot, and her voice was loud. "Ah! Murder!" Vanya just turned around and glanced at Auntie, which made Auntie feel what it meant to feel cold all over her body. The middle-aged aunt couldn't understand Vanya's eyes, which were hollow and lifeless. When they were dull to the extreme, they showed a kind of ruthlessness. After being stunned for another second or two, the middle-aged woman threw the melon seeds in her hand, yelled, and ran away to other places. The people around him dispersed in a hurry. The new priest was stabbed in the throat. The treatment effect was excellent. Those who were sick could get up and run for a few steps. The headache and fever disappeared without a trace after sweating profusely. A circus is better than a dozen doctors. It seems that killing a vampire has the same effect, releasing a group healer. The new priest couldn't even lift his arms. Along with the bloodline came toxins. The terrible toxins directly made the new priest lose his ability to resist. The surrounding blood servants didn't dare to come over at all. This was a battle between 2 level 2 vampires. In other words, one level 2 vampire unilaterally crushed another level 2 vampire. Vanya, who possesses witchcraft, has actual combat capabilities that far exceed that of the new priest in front of him. Soon, the new priest died of excessive blood loss. The bloodline was drawn out, dragging the new priest forward. The 2 bloodlines did not retract, but pierced the new priest's back. Stimulated by the bloodline, the new priest's bat wings instantly opened. In front of everyone, Vanya tore off a pair of bloody bat wings, and he wrote the words "I am a villain" on his face, extremely arrogant. After the bat wings disappeared from Vanya's hand, Vanya saw the vampire deacon flying out of the Red Church. "Vanya! Are you crazy?" Vito didn't get an answer, he only saw that Vanya was not only crazy, but also kind of wanted to kill him. There were only 3 level 2 vampires among these deacons. Vanya rushed into the deacons. He was not afraid of the deacon's attacks, but as long as he was stabbed by the bloodline, the vampire deacons would soon lose their ability to resist. The last thing Vito saw was him being nailed backwards to the lightning rod on the top of the church, looking at the vast night sky. Even until his death, Vito didn't know why Vanya was so strong, even though he was also a level 2 vampire. Not only Vito was nailed up, but the new priest was also nailed up. The two people, one on the left and one on the right, have a kind of symmetrical beauty. Vanya spread his bat wings and circled the red church arrogantly for several times before flying out of the town. Sheriff Claude looked at Vanya flying away with satisfaction, sighing in his heart that it was still Rudolph's flower. After putting down the binoculars, Chief Claude left the rooftop of the police station and returned to the office. Tonight, Chief Claude rarely went to find his lover, but stayed at the police station. In the office at this time, there was a person standing by the window, also looking at the red church in the distance. Sheriff Claude was in a happy mood. "Sister Ivy, please go back and tell our teacher, Professor Abel, that I am confident that I can contain a level 3 vampire in Lehman Town." Professor Abel has many names. He is a professor and dean of Fabreau City Alchemy College. He is a senior level 4 alchemist and the deputy speaker of Fabreau City Alchemy Council. He is also a native of Lehman Town. Claude knew the young Professor Abel when he was a child. At that time, Professor Abel was just a young student who only came back during winter and summer vacations. He is also Claude's teacher, and Claude was also promoted to level 3 alchemist in Professor Abel's laboratory. "Senior Claude, the teacher asked me to help you. Now it seems that I am redundant. You can draw out the power of the vampires by yourself." Ivy glanced at the direction in which the arrogant vampires flew away and asked, "It's just that vampire. Is it really trustworthy? There is no restraint on him. I'm afraid he will confess." "Don't worry about this. That vampire is absolutely reliable and there won't be any problems." Chief Claude mentioned another matter. "As for the wizard Rudolph who appeared in my police station, I still need help from the teacher. Chien, don't let the tribunal start a witch hunt." Ivy couldn't help but remind her somewhat unreliable senior. "Senior Claude, you have been in Lemon Town for so many years, but the teacher said that you still like to mess around as much as you did when you were young. Only now do I know that what the teacher said is true. You are a wizard and a vengeful vampire. The people we have to protect are too dangerous." Claude waved his hand. "My friends are all level 2 apostles, they are not worth mentioning. Compared with what the teacher did back then, I am conservative. As long as the Judgment Bureau does not organize witch hunts, then my friends will always be friends. If the Judgment Bureau wants witch hunting, please tell me in advance." Ivy also knows that their teacher, Professor Abel, has also done many dangerous things. Fabreau City once had some dangerous laboratories, and there were also terrifying beings like level 3 wizards in the laboratories. To put it nicely, he has a spirit of exploration and adventure. To put it poorly, he dares to try anything. These are also the essential qualities of an excellent alchemist, being rigorous and bold. Senior, whenever you shield a wizard, there is a risk of backlash. You must be careful. At least for the town of Lehman, Rudolph is a special wizard. We always have to believe that there is a little light in human nature. Even a wizard will not harm his hometown." Claude took out a letter and passed it to Ivy. "Please forward this letter to Professor Abel. This is my letter of recommendation. Let's look at the wizard Rudolph again. If he still has a bottom line in his actions after being exposed and does not attack others unscrupulously for the magic weapon, I suggest that he join the Relief Society." "Asking a wizard to join the Relief Society? Senior Claude, are you serious?" Claude nodded. "The vampires, werewolves, evil gods, and the 3 apostles are about to use Fabreau City as the battlefield. The disaster is foreseeable. We need strength. Instead of looking for an unfamiliar wandering wizard, it is better to find a Lehman Town wizard, more familiar and more reliable. Ivy took the recommendation letter. I will tell the teacher and let the teacher make the decision. If there is a chance, I will also observe the wizard to see if he is worthy of your trust. It was already late at night, and Ivy remembered the professor's instructions before coming. Ivy, I don't worry about anything else, but you must be careful about Claude at night. Your teacher's wife said that Claude has a strange charm towards women at night. So I chased him away, otherwise I would have been tempted to break his legs. Claude has never wanted to be transferred to Fabreau City, and his teacher Professor Abel doesn't care much about it either. Ivy took a look at her senior. He had a very good figure, meticulous hairstyle, a faint scent of perfume, better skin than hers, and deep eyes. He didn't have the greasiness of a middle-aged person at all, but looked like he was aged. Wine is full of stories. Senior, if there's nothing wrong, I'll leave first. Although she felt that her senior had no thoughts about her, she still felt that she should keep her distance. Okay, I'll let Kelida see it off for you. Sheriff Claude lamented the exaggerated talent of this schoolgirl. The 22-year-old level 3 alchemist was no worse than the top students at the Royal Urbana Academy in the capital. He thought of Rudolph again. How old was Rudolph? He seemed to be 18. An 18-year-old level 2 wizard is impressive enough. Claude didn't know how the vampire escaped from the Ravno family's search, but he believed that Rudolph, since Rudolph dared to attack the Red Church so blatantly, must have his own unique method. After the death of the new priest and Vito, the angry Ravno family sent the deacon again. This time, it was a huge team of 10 vampire deacons. To Claude's dismay, he had just boasted that Haikau could attract a level 3 vampire, but this time it was still a level 2 vampire. His teacher, Deputy Speaker Abel, urgently needs to know what happened to the Ravno family, and needs to transfer Hera, the high priest of the Red Church, away from Fabreau City. Claude came to the rooftop again and sent another letter with an owl. This scale needs to be further grasped. Bloodletting can be done casually. Don't worry, there is someone above us. After receiving the letter, Rudolph was very confused and didn't know what Sheriff Claude was going to do. Now Sheriff Claude seems to hate the vampires even more than Rudolph and Yvonne. Out of trust in Sheriff Claude, Rudolph took action again. 2 level 2 vampire deacons were flying in the night sky. Rudolph had locked onto them. They were far enough away from other vampires. In the dark forest at night, Rudolph stretched out his hand, and Vanya flew out from his palm. The castle bats hovered above Vanya's head, and Vanya allowed them to gather in greater numbers. Vanya spread his wings and flew quickly towards the 2 vampires. Unsurprisingly, Vanya once again obtained 2 pairs of level 2 bat wings. Vanya suddenly appeared and disappeared again. This time it was for the vampire deacon to deliver news to the Ravno family, so no one from Rudolph was left alive. The vampires searched all the surrounding places, but found nothing. Vanya seemed to have disappeared from the world. The situation of the vampires in Lehman Town deteriorated again, and the deacons had to ask the city's Red Church for support again. Rudolph harvested 5 more level 2 relic bat wings. After being made into witchcraft weapons, they are all good things. There is no need to worry about the lack of market. They are easy to sell. After giving the vampire deacons a little confrontation, Rudolph finally got new instructions from the sheriff: come and meet. You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. Weird Star Witch. Author, White Silver Black Iron. Chapter 157. Claude and Sam rode out of the town. Sheriff Claude had forgotten how long it had been since he patrolled outside the town. Vampires' fear of sunlight makes daytime very safe. After reaching the edge of a forest, Sam looked at the 2 horses while Sheriff Claude walked into the forest. Sheriff Claude lit a cigarette and waited silently. No open fires in the forest. Sheriff, why don't you pay attention to any discipline? After hearing Rudolph's voice, Sheriff Claude turned his head. Compared with the big things you have done recently, my crime of smoking a cigarette in the forest is as small as the eye of a needle. Chief, what do you want from me? Rudolph, your new friend, Vanya, who keeps attacking the vampires, is he reliable? Rudolph said with great certainty, very, very reliable. He only obeys my orders, absolutely. I don't know what means you used to prevent the vampires from finding Vanya now. But it's very dangerous now. The Rievno family has brought this matter to the forefront. The biggest trouble with the vampires is that they will keep the blood feud for decades or even centuries. The Rievno family is very angry now. There is certain information that Hera, the level 3 vampire and the high priest of the Red Church, is already on the way to Lemontown. So, Rudolph, you need to take a break. You're going to leave tonight and leave Lemontown for a while. Rudolph felt at this time that he was still safe at the police station. He can easily get a lot of information at the police station. Although he can still monitor Lemontown, he has no way of knowing about many higher level things, such as the fact that level 3 vampires are coming to Lemontown. I know, I'm just going to go to the town of Gas in the north. Gazay town? What are you doing there? Sir Jennifer has been called up. She is going to participate in the promotion battle of Baron Harksum. I will go to see it in advance and try to help Sir Jennifer save her life. Sheriff Claude looked happy. You have reminded me. I will go to the Jazz Castle tonight and tell Mrs. Lysely that I have sent someone to follow Jennifer to ensure that Jennifer can return safely. Sheriff Claude's expression became more and more confused, and he was already thinking about how to let Mrs. Lysely thank him. Those regular projects are already a bit boring. It's time to help Mrs. Lysely make some breakthroughs. Chief, you know how to pick up the pieces. You're telling me, am I the kind of person who only wants to pick peaches? Sheriff Claude took out a badge from his arms and handed it to Rudolph. Rudolph took the copper badge with some confusion. He looked at the sergeant and found that the sergeant's face was unusually serious. The sheriff said, Rudolph, I have recommended that you officially join the Fabreau City Relief Society. For you, there is an advantage in joining the Relief Society, which is now the enemy of the vampires just like you. Yvonne's identity as a werewolf has been exposed, and so has your identity as a wizard. The two of you have entered the side of the Rievno family. The Rievno family has enough patience to deal with you for decades. Although you and Yvonne can still move around relatively easily now, it is because Vanya has attracted most of the attention of the vampires. As the Rievno family becomes more and more serious, your situation will become more and more difficult. I hope you can agree to join the Relief Society. At least the Relief Society can help you fight against the Rievno family. Rudolph looked at the badge. It had the letters Relief Society on it, forming an arc and surrounding the outer circle. There was also a scale pattern on the badge. I am willing to join the Relief Society just to fight against the Rievno family. Rudolph continued to ask, so, what kind of organization is the Relief Society? Besides fighting against the Rievno family, what is the purpose of the Relief Society? Claude knew that Rudolph would ask this question. Anyone who wants to join an organization must first understand the organization's situation. He answered. The Relief Society was established because of a decision of the county council. The city of Fabreau belongs to Vichy County and is the most remote city in Vichy County. Iron ore was discovered here, so the Alchemy Council of Vichy County established before that, the city of Fabreau was established here. The land in Fabreau City used to belong to the Rievno family of the Blood tribe. After a brief defeat, the Rievno family signed an agreement with the county council and would no longer obstruct all actions of the county council. The county council also allowed the Rievno family to build a red church in the city of Fabreau. The iron ore in our town of Lehman was exhausted a long time ago. Major iron mines in other places also closed down one after another. The Vichy County Council made a decision a year ago not to invest too many resources in the city of Fabreau. The city of Fabreau will slowly lose ground in the future. Originally, this was nothing. Resource-based cities will one day run out of resources. However, the Rievno family believes that they should take over the city of Fabreau again. Many people born in Fabreau city do not want to see the vampires take over the city. There has never been a precedent for the vampires to take over the city before. If Fabreau city is taken over by the vampires, it is conceivable that the people here will become blood food of the vampires. Some alchemists who were born and raised in Fabreau city established a relief society. The goal of the relief society is to ensure that Fabreau city remains in the hands of humans, rather than becoming a blood pool for the vampires. If the support from the county council is limited, then we will have to build up sufficient forces ourselves. Even if all the people in Fabreau were to be relocated, it would take a long time. It is impossible for the city council to relocate everyone with just one order. If they go to other places, so many people will need housing, land, and food. This is a long process. We cannot let the Blood Clan take advantage of this vacuum period to really occupy Fabreau city. Rudolph suddenly remembered the Black Queen Jessica. At that time, Jessica said that the werewolves and the evil gods did not attack Fabreau city for no reason. It was Fabreau city that did something out of line first. Rudolph asked, "Sheriff, are the werewolf riots and the evil god riots also caused by the Blood Clan?" The sheriff nodded. "Now it seems that it is. Werewolves, blood clans, and evil gods are called the three apostles of sacrifice. The ancestors of the werewolves created werewolves, the ancestors of the blood clan created blood clans, and the evil gods created believers. The purpose is to sacrifice ancestors or evil gods and make their ancestors or evil gods more powerful. If the blood race finds a more efficient way to sacrifice, the other two types of apostles will be restless. Now it seems that the werewolves have made no progress in sacrificing the ancestors of the werewolves, and they are the most anxious. The evil god began to study the packaging method similar to the goddess of harvest, and the effect was remarkable. The method chosen by the blood race is to try to control the city and sacrifice enough blood to Dracula, the ancestor of the blood race. In short, Fabreau city has now become a battlefield for several types of apostles to fight for. Only the Relief Association, only the apostles born and raised in Fabreau city, are still full of affection for the people here. We don't want this place to become a paradise for blood races, werewolves, or evil gods. Take Sam, who is waiting for me outside. He represents all the people in Fabreau city. Would you like to see a child like Sam being taken by the blood race to be blood food? The people of the Relief Association have family, friends, houses, and fields here, and we will not give up easily." Rudolph thought of Lehman. He had developed feelings for Lehman this year, which was why he and Yvonne did not flee immediately after their identities were exposed. It is always hard to leave. It is not so easy to leave. "Sheriff, I am willing to join the Relief Association. Please give me some monthly votes. I want to be on the monthly vote list of fantasy category. I am 50 votes short. I don't know if I can make it in my lifetime." Weird Star Witch. Author, White Silver Black Iron. Chapter 158. Yvonne, you haven't been to Fabreau yet, right? We're passing by Fabreau this time, so we can stay there for 2 days. The level 3 vampires are coming to catch the traitors of the Ravener family, and Rudolph is going to hide for 2 days. Even if the vampires smash every stone in Lehman Town, they can't find the puppet Vanya. According to the star map, the Scorpio puppet is one of the top forbidden techniques of the Scorpio wizard. It is said that there are only 12 level 9 wizards in the world, known as the 12 zodiac wizards, corresponding to the 12 constellations, and each constellation can only produce one level 9 wizard. For example, the very famous wizard Ptolemy was the only level 9 Ares wizard. Ptolemy was promoted again from the level 9 wizard, and he became a level 10 wizard and gained immortality. And the forbidden technique is the witchcraft created by the 12 zodiac wizards. When Rudolph is bored, he will close his eyes and look at the star map in his mind. The magnificent star map is always the same, and there will be no changes except when receiving the relics. Except for Scorpio, the entire star map is still shrouded in mist. Sometimes he would think about a question: is the star map really his? Did he really master the forbidden art of falling stars? Or is he just the operator of the star map? Is the Scorpio puppet Vanya Rudolph's or the star map's? Vanya quietly hangs under the Scorpio star field of the star map. How much does the production of this puppet have to do with Rudolph? Rudolph doesn't know whether he is talented or not, because his growth is full of unexpected success. Just learning the right witch language is extremely difficult for other wizards. Every time you send a relic to the star map, you will get 3 rewards. Rudolph can always choose the witch language that is just right for him to learn from the 3 rewards. In the corresponding wizard month, using the right relic, learning the right witch language, and making the right relic is the way for wizards to be promoted. Rudolph encountered the level 2 wolf pupil in the Leo month, and the Leo witch language happened to be among the options for the star map reward, so he was promoted to a level 2 wizard. If you miss the Leo month this year, I'm sorry, you can only wait until next year. It's hard to hunt for the right relics, and other apostles are not made of flour. It's also hard to know the right witch language. Why is a wizard apprentice called an apprentice? Because it's hard for a wizard to grow on his own. He must have a teacher to train him slowly, otherwise he doesn't even know the witch language. As we all know, there are few good wizards. At least let Rudolph train a wizard apprentice now, he is too troublesome. This is also the reason why wizards have the least number of apostles. Just like the level of forbidden magic is too high, those vampires have no way of knowing it, the level of the star map is too high, and Rudolph has no way of knowing it. Sometimes Rudolph looks at the star map, just like looking at a big net, covering his head, so that Rudolph doesn't know how to leave this big net. Before entering Fabreau City, you have to board your horse at the horse farm. There are trams in Fabreau City, and riding is not allowed, otherwise you have to deal with horse manure. The stables had special staff to deliver the horses, and Rudolph only had to wait in the lounge for the final signature. In the lounge, a person who was also temporarily storing horses walked towards Rudolph. Rudolph turned his head and saw a woman, a young woman. Rudolph's eyes fell on her back. There were 3 followers at the table where she had just sat. Judging from the followers' attire, they were all guards of this young woman. The woman introduced herself very generously. "Hello, Rudolph, my name is Ivy. I wonder if the senior has mentioned me to you." "Senior? Who is the senior? There are no seniors around me. My senior is Sheriff Claude." "Oh, then no." Ivy was a little annoyed. Senior Claude was indeed a little unreliable. She pushed up her sleeves, revealing a corner of the badge inside, which was the badge of the Relief Society. The high priest of the Red Church of the city, Hera, a level 3 vampire, went to Lehman Town to investigate the vampire rebellion in person. This is an opportunity. Tonight is the day when all towns deliver blood to the Red Church of the city, and the Relief Society will attack those blood transport vehicles at the same time. Rudolph, you will be responsible for attacking the blood transport vehicle in one of the towns. Be careful not to leave any handles, and don't let the vampires know that it was done by our Relief Society. I didn't expect that he would receive a task just after joining the Relief Society. The Relief Society was going to make a big one, and Rudolph liked it very much. He nodded. To what extent will the attack be? Should the escorting vampires be kept? Ivy was stunned, and suddenly felt that wizards were bloody. She had just graduated from the laboratory and had not yet adapted to such direct questions. She quickly adjusted herself because she knew that she would have to experience these life and death struggles sooner or later. Ivy said, "We need to break all the blood transport vehicles and let the blood flow on the road. This is our goal." The municipal sanitation department is repairing the system tonight. There is no water in all the municipal pipes and they cannot be cleaned. The blood will be seen by everyone tomorrow. As for the blood clans escorting the blood transport vehicles, we will make them lose their ability to move, or kill them directly, depending on the situation at that time. Okay. Ivy didn't say anything more and left here directly. She felt a little unsafe in front of the wizard. Ivy didn't tell her guards about Rudolph's identity. If these people told the family about her contact with the wizard, the family would definitely not let her go out freely again. It was midnight, and 3 carriages were moving slowly on a road into the city. There were 1 or 2 pale-skinned people sitting in the carriage, all of them were vampires. The vampires in the carriage were chatting, and now they were close to Fabreau City, and the danger seemed to be greatly reduced. I heard that the family has been having some troubles recently. Yes, the Alchemy Council still won't give in. We spent a lot of money and successfully lobbied several members, but there are still many members in the parliament who oppose it. Have you heard? There have been several tragedies in the Red Church in Lehman Town. A vampire betrayed the family and attacked the Red Church in Lehman Town crazily. The higher UPS don't let us discuss it, but how could I not know? That vampire killed 2 priests in a row, he was very rampant, and he also killed many deacons. Hold on, what the family wants to do this time is closely related to each of us. If the family takes over Fabreau City, we will all have a good life in the future. The 2 chatted one sentence at a time, surrounded by castle bats, monitoring the situation in the distance. Along the way, mice looked up at the 3 carriages, turning their heads and following the convoy with their small black eyes. The 3 carriages passed by where Rudolph and Ivan were hiding, but Rudolph just watched them pass by. Rudolph would not be the first to attack, he needed to see the strength of the Relief Society and see how they would operate in other places. At the same time, Rudolph was also monitoring the blood transport vehicles of the vampires on other roads into the city. Having just entered an organization, Rudolph could not trust the organization unconditionally. Even if it was introduced by Sheriff Claude, it would not work. Rudolph trusted Sheriff Claude, and Sheriff Claude was not here. It was very easy to monitor Lehman Town, but it became very difficult to monitor Fabreau City. Rudolph infected 6 owls and finally knew the situation of other roads into the city. Soon, on the road on the northwest side, the people of the Relief Society took action. If I am not mistaken, the person who took action was Ivy, who I met in the afternoon, and her guards. 4 bullets were fired from Ivy's revolver, hitting 4 carriages in turn. What surprised Rudolph was that this was not an ordinary bullet. After the bullet hit the carriage, it exploded like a grenade. Ivy's gun was not loaded with bullets, but a miniature alchemical grenade. Although small in size, it was no less powerful than an ordinary grenade. The 4 carriages shattered in the roar. The blood in the carriage was blown into the air and fell on the street like heavy rain. The blood clan escorting the blood transporter was also hit by the guards' bullets and fell to the ground groaning and twitching. Ivy did not shoot again and left like this. Because they knew that the level 3 blood clan was not in Fabreau City, the Relief Association could attack the blood clan wantonly. Rudolph stood up from the darkness, with a wound on his finger that he had pierced himself. Vampires of the Ravno family, you will be hungry this month. The secretive blood bat silently passed through the bottom of the carriage and flew towards several guarding vampires. A few seconds later, several guarding vampires were poisoned and collapsed on the carriage. A few seconds later, these vampires came back to life again. Unlike the other groups that attacked the blood transporter, Rudolph was much quieter here. The revived vampire zombies turned around and dismantled the carriage. Soon, the blood cans in the 3 carriages were dismantled one by one and thrown on the ground. Rudolph admitted that his destructive power was not as good as the other groups, which mostly used grenades and explosives. However, Rudolph was the quietest here. In the dark night, 5 vampires completely destroyed their own blood transporters, and blood flowed on the street, making a stream-like sound. There was also a level 2 vampire among the blood transporter guards. Rudolph asked him to spread his bat wings, and then he knelt on the side of the blood transport vehicle. On the side of the vehicle was the blood drop pattern of the Red Church. The other vampires did the same, kneeling behind the level 2 vampires. People passing by will see that what the Red Church sends to the city church every month is not ordinary goods, but carts of blood. The 5 kneeling vampires seem to be atonement for their previous actions. For Rudolph, the sense of ritual is very important, and this is called perfection. Originally, more details about the wizard will be revealed when meeting the first pair of wizard apostles, but some book friends asked, so let me explain it in this chapter first. Weird Star Witch. Author, White Silver Black Iron. Chapter 159. Rudolph got up very late the next day, holding a newspaper while eating breakfast in the hotel restaurant. Daily Fabreau actually published the major event done by the Relief Society last night on its front page. The cover is a set of photos of bombed blood trucks. The photo that occupies the largest space is the picture created by Rudolph. A level 2 vampire spread his wings in front and knelt in front of the Red Church pattern on the side wall of the carriage. Behind him, there were 5 vampires who also worshipped the blood drop badge of the Red Church. The angle of this photo is very good. The camera is placed very low. On the blood on the ground, several vampires are kneeling. Above their heads is the blood red emblem of the Red Church. Whether it is the blood drop emblem of the Red Church or the Blood Clan, they are all reflected in the water made of blood. The reflection was blurry, and the blood red water made the reflection darker. The bat wings of the vampires and the emblem of the Red Church seemed to hide red demons. Rudolph nodded with satisfaction. The photographer had taken it seriously and captured the essence of this scene. The other scenes are just about blowing out the plasma, nothing new at all. The title of this report is also very interesting, Shock. Where does Chinch's blood come from? Is there a dirty blood trade in the Red Church? Or a blood-sucking devil? The large blood-red characters, coupled with the bloody pictures in the newspaper, made this report attractive enough. A blood transport truck that can attack 5 or 6 towns at the same time, and that can publish such a large-scale report in the newspaper the next day, the Relief Society's strength is much stronger than Rudolph imagined. At least the newspaper office stayed up all night, worked on the news all night, and printed all night long to be able to do such a thing. Come on, Ivan, let's go take the tram, fresh and fresh. The two of them went out, bought tickets, and got on the tram. The tram bell jingled as it walked along the tracks in the middle of the city road. Ivan sat by the window and looked at the passers-by outside. Compared with the very simple clothes in Lehman Town, the women in Fabreau City are more fashionable. They have more styles of clothes and richer accessories. At least this was the first time Ivan had seen so many beautiful veils. After a brief stroll around the city, Rudolph took the tram twice and headed outside the city. At the horse farm outside the city, Rudolph waited for the horse farm employees to bring their horses. Still in the same position, at the same round table, Ivy met Rudolph again. Ivy has been followed by guards, and she doesn't know who she is. Ivy whispered, "Rudolph, everyone is most satisfied with your results and thinks you are the most professional and talented. You're not bad either. Your alchemical bullets, which are similar to grenades, are very powerful." Ivy was very surprised to hear Rudolph's words. Her battle scenes were actually seen by the wizard in front of her. No wonder the teacher said that if we only talk about destructive power, no one can compare to the alchemist. However, although some apostles' abilities are not strong, they are very strange and difficult to defend against. Ivy couldn't figure out why the wizard could see her take action. She decided to go back and ask Professor Abel. Maybe the professor had seen this ability. Your restraint also surprised us. You left 5 kneeling corpses of vampires at the scene. The relics on those corpses are still there, which proves that you are not a greedy person. Thank you, I am not greedy. However, I have a question, Rudolph said. I want to ask, who is our relief organization helping? Who should be rescued? Of course it is the people of Fabreau City. Not only must we prevent Fabreau City from falling into the hands of the vampires, we are also seriously trying to find ways to improve the lives of the poor. Soon the first almshouse in the city of Fabreau would be established. After the grain riots, there were many beggars in Fabreau City, and the workhouse would take in and help those beggars. In the almshouse, someone will teach the beggars skills. Girls learn to weave and boys learn craftsmanship. We have contacted several craftsmen societies. Rudolph quickly interrupted Ivy's desire to talk. I join the Relief Society and I work for the Relief Society. So, do you think I look like a relief recipient of the Relief Society? Ivy was stunned for a long time before reacting. You mean, you want money? It's cliché to talk about money, I'm talking about salary. Ivy's eyes seemed to be able to spit out fire. The Relief Society is an organization with great ideals. On a large scale, we want to thwart the vampires' plan to take over Fabreau City. On a small scale, we want to rescue those poor beggars. You actually negotiated salary with me. I understand somewhat. Rudolph was a little unbelievable. In other words, Sheriff Claude actually recommended me to join a charity organization. Please pay attention, Ivy stared into Rudolph's eyes. Yes. A charitable organization that can decide whether the Inquisition will launch a witch hunt against you. Don't be so angry, as if I have just tarnished your dream. I just lost my job and wanted to find a job. I thought the Relief Society was a commercial organization, but I didn't expect that the nature of the Relief Society was the same as its name. It's a charitable organization. Wizards also need to work. Rudolph said with great certainty. Of course, I believe in getting rich through hard work. I hope to have a job instead of living by hunting the relics of other apostles. I am a decent person, not an evil wizard in the traditional sense. By the way, don't you think about making money? Ivy shook her head. Don't think about it, I think there are many things more important than money. Then where does the money for your living come from? Ivy said, as a matter of course, my father gave it to me. What about your father's money? My grandfather's legacy. What about your grandfather's money? Your question is boring. My grandfather's money was of course given by my great-grandfather. We have a family business, Lore Mining Company. My last name is Thor, and my full name is Ivy Thor. It turns out that Thor Mining Company, the largest mining company in Fabreau City, belongs to Ivy's family. Rudolph looked at Ivy's expensive jewelry, exquisite silk scarves and long skirts made of rare fabrics, and knew that he and Ivy were not on the same channel. Oh, I was wrong. I shouldn't have asked these questions. Ivy also understood what Rudolph was saying. It was really surprising that a wizard was actually looking for a job. I can't help you with the job. But if the Relief Society makes some achievements, such as taking in a certain number of beggars and organizing the distribution of relief food, then Professor Abel will propose at the Alchemy Council that the council allocate funds for the Relief Society. If we have extra money, maybe we will give you a salary at that time, but it will definitely not be much. Where does the startup capital of the Relief Society come from now? Professor Abel contributed part of it, and the rest was donated by the members first. I donated half of the startup capital on behalf of Thor Mining Company. Ivy looked at Rudolph seriously, as if she had some unrealistic expectations. What do you mean? Rudolph shook his head quickly. That's too much. I haven't made any money yet, and you want me to donate money. Ivy didn't force it, and finally said. I understand. You don't seem to fully agree with the ideals of the Relief Society. You are more interested in resisting the vampires. I will inform you through Senior Claude if there are actions against the vampires in the future. If it is against the Ravener family, then I can volunteer. Rudolph asked again. Ms. Ivy, I heard that the existing iron mine of Thor Mining Company is in Gazetown. Is there a relief house in Gazetown now? Gazetown? You are going to Gazetown? There is a relief house in Gazetown. It is an experimental relief house I run. I hope you can help me get an identity so that I can move around in Gazetown. Gazetown is not only the location of a branch of Thor Mining, but also the location of Baron Hockum's fiefdom. Rudolph wants to investigate Baron Hockum, and it would be best if he has an identity. It just so happens that Ivy in front of him can help him. You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. Weird Star Witch. Author, White Silver Black Iron. Chapter 160. The town of Gas is a large town north of Fabreau City and the territory of Baron Harkem. In order to help Jennifer, Rudolph came to Gasai Town to make some preparations and at least familiarize himself with the situation in Gasai Town, so as not to know anything when the time comes. Gas Town is obviously more prosperous than Lehman Town. There is also a branch of Toll Mining Company here and a large iron mine that is still being mined. After entering Gazay Town, Rudolph easily saw the tallest building in Gazay Town, a 4-story office building. On the white stone wall, there are pilasters with beautiful decorations on their capitals. On the wall of the office building, there is a metal name of the company, Tor Mining Company Gazay Branch. Ivy, the alchemist of the Relief Society, and her family's property is the Thor Mining Company. Passing through the town of Gas, you can see the baronial castle of Baron Harkham at the end of the road. Jennifer's Jazz Castle is more like a manor, very close to the farm, and the walls are not very tall. Baron Castle is more like a military fortress. Between the 4 stone towers is a tall city wall, and behind the wall is the 3-story main body of the baronial castle. In addition, there is a small river between the Baron Castle and the town of Gas. On the river is the suspension bridge that must be passed to enter the Baron Castle. According to the address provided by Ivy, Rudolph came to the almshouse in Gas Town, a almshouse converted from the warehouse of Thor Mining Company. Rudolph first found the dean of the almshouse. Dean, Miss Ivy recommended me to come to you. I heard that Gastown was the first place to set up an almshouse. I want to come and have a look and learn about it so that I can go back later. A soup kitchen was also established in my hometown. The director's name is Elaine, a middle-aged woman with a kind face. After reading Ivy's recommendation letter, she did not doubt anything and said, "Sir, the relief home needs kind-hearted people like you. You have any questions, just ask me and I'll tell you." Okay, if there is any work in the workhouse during this period, both of us can help. Yvonne looked at the workhouse with curiosity. The workhouse was very simple, with a tall warehouse divided into 2 sections. The first half is a classroom, and the second half is divided into left and right sections, with boys on one side and girls on the other, with many high and low beds. It was already evening, and the children were all looking at the dean's guests. Next, Rodolfo and Yvonne will act as new employees of the workhouse. After finding a hotel near the almshouse that was neither high-end nor shabby, Rudolph and Yvonne stayed. In February, during the full moon of Aquarius, Rudolph and Yvonne mingled with the crowd and went to see the full moon festival in Gassertown. There are many more people in Gastown than in Lemangtown, and many of them are miners. These miners wear heavy denim clothes with patches on their shoulders, elbows, and knees, which are areas where their clothes are easily worn out. Seeing the crowds flocking to the town square, Rudolph was a little confused. He went to a newsstand and bought a newspaper. In any newspaper, the prominent place is the news that the vampire blood transport truck was destroyed. However, These news do not seem to affect people's enthusiasm for sacrifices. At this time, there was another person at the newsstand who also bought a newspaper, and Rudolph started talking to him. "Friend, why are so many people going to attend the full moon ceremony?" The man was a middle-aged miner. His sleeves were rolled up even in winter. His thick arms were extremely hairy, and even the backs of his fingers were covered with hair. He held a cigarette between his two fingers. Just as the man was about to speak, he coughed. The newsstand owner said, "Otto, you have silicosis and you still smoke so much. I think you should either retire or quit smoking." Otto coughed for a while and finally felt better, but his neck was red and his face looked ugly. "Retirement? What can I do after retirement?" "What did you ask me just now?" Rudolph replied. "There are vampires in the Red Church. They are collecting people's blood. Why do people still go to the full moon sacrifice?" Otto wiped the tears from the corners of his eyes due to coughing and said, "Why not go? Of course vampires are not humming good people, but vampires publicly execute other cruel and bloody apostles. This alone makes it difficult for ordinary people to refuse, doesn't it? Let me tell you, vampires are just too cowardly. Why don't they dare to burn everyone in the Baron's castle? Or burn the people in the Thor mining office building to death? I'm so humming looking forward to it." Otto only glanced at the newspaper a few times and returned it to the newsstand owner without buying it. The newsstand owner didn't say anything and continued to wait for other customers. Rudolph couldn't help but ask the newsstand owner, "Do many people think so? Aristocrats and mining companies are more hateful than vampires." The newsstand owner smiled and said, "Young man, I've been selling newspapers my entire life, and I know newspapers best. The newspaper news you see is the news those people allow you to see. Don't be happy or sad because of what's in the news, there's no need. The newspapers say there are vampires in the Red Church. Those are the people who want you to know that there are vampires in the Red Church. The Red Church may be older than my grandfather, so why didn't they expose this matter earlier? Don't worry about this anymore, go to the full moon sacrifice and enjoy the grand scene of killing the apostle." Judging from the rumors during this period, there may not be such a free show in the future. Rudolph held the newspaper under his arm and walked towards the square where the full moon sacrifice was held. The miner named Otto and the newsstand owner just now really hated the nobles and mining companies more. Rudolph observed the pedestrians around him. Compared with Lehman Town, Gasser Town was obviously more prosperous, but many people's lives were worse. After arriving at the edge of the square, Rudolph saw layers of people. People cheered and looked at the altar. On the altar, there were 5 werewolves waiting to be sacrificed. Lehman Town has never had such a big scene. Gasser Town can sacrifice 5 werewolves at a time. Maybe it is because the Red Church is eager to change their unfavorable situation, so it is particularly anxious now. As the sacrifice progressed, people's emotions also reached a climax. Rudolph squinted his eyes and accepted the full moon, mumbling, "This month. This blood is so sweet. Let those rats not be lazy." Anger is always connected with destruction. The seriously injured cavalry and the miner's disease, others' disaster, my desert. Among the many mumblings, Rudolph noticed a strange mumbling. Seriously injured cavalry? There are cavalry only in the Baron's castle. Rudolph turned his head and scanned the surroundings. He seemed to have found a clue related to the Baron's castle. Weird Star Witch. Author, White Silver Black Iron. Chapter 161. The sparrow flew over the Baron's castle and saw the situation inside clearly. There was a very large training ground behind the castle. Some cavalrymen were doing charge drills, some were doing sparring, and some were doing strength exercises. The entire training ground was filled with the screams of cavalrymen. The nobles in the castle were supervising the training of the cavalrymen, including Sir Harley, whom Rudolph had met. There was also a younger one who looked like Sir Harley's son. A rough count showed that there were no less than 100 cavalrymen in the Baron's castle, divided into several cavalry squads, and the cavalry captain was leading the team to train in various subjects. To Rudolph's surprise, he actually saw a werewolf in the Baron's castle, a living werewolf. The werewolf was locked in an alchemical iron cage. When someone passed by the iron cage, he would ram the iron cage from time to time, scaring passers-by. The Baron's castle actually captured several werewolves alive and used real werewolves to train the cavalry. In addition, the Baron's castle actually had lancers, who did not use swords, but rifles. Come to think of it, the knights used broadswords because they were apostles, and cold weapons could better exert their strength. The cavalry only had outstanding physical fitness among ordinary people. If you ask which weapon is the most effective, it is of course various alchemical firearms. Several cavalrymen fired many shots at the werewolf through the iron cage until the werewolf was dying. A cavalryman skillfully threw out a trident hook, which was directly hung on the werewolf. As long as it was pulled, it could pierce into the werewolf's flesh. In this way, the cavalry hooked the werewolf out of the cage. Rudolph stood behind a big tree outside the castle, and he was amazed at the soldiers' proficiency. War horses need desensitization training, and so do people. Only by fighting werewolves frequently can they no longer be afraid of werewolves on the real battlefield. The werewolf was dragged into a closed yard, waiting for the werewolf to slowly wake up with its recovery power. Outside the yard, the knight's attendant was giving the cavalry a final lecture. The werewolves inside would become the target of the cavalry's actual military training. There were also cavalrymen who threw half a sheep to the werewolves. The Baron Castle was very willing to invest. After the werewolf woke up, he quickly ate half a sheep and roared wildly in the yard. Not long after, the knight's attendant led the cavalry team into the yard. It didn't take long. After a short fight, the werewolf was subdued again. The werewolf fought desperately before being subdued. A cavalryman was slapped on the back by the werewolf's claws, and his spine should be broken. Soon, the cavalryman was carried away. Rudolph's sight began to follow the cavalryman. Perhaps the cavalryman would get a tube of wolf poison potion. Not long after, the castle steward found the cavalryman. The cavalryman lay on a stretcher, but the castle steward gave the cavalryman a thick stack of money, apparently sending the cavalryman away. Wolfsbane potion was a very important strategic material before the war. Obviously, Baron Castle thought that they didn't need to waste a tube of wolfsbane potion on a weak cavalryman. Baron Castle was serious. Their training was very cruel and they were preparing for Baron Hockum's promotion. The cavalryman was carried out of Baron Castle and carried all the way to the town. Rudolph also stopped monitoring Baron Castle. The cavalryman was carried by two people and came to a clinic. Sparrow looked at the name of the clinic, Doolittle Clinic. Severely injured cavalry and miners' plague. I don't know if this mumbling has anything to do with this clinic. Not long after, Rudolph also entered the clinic and found that the clinic was not big. The clinic was filled with the smell of disinfectant, which Rudolph thought was quite good. Looking at the clinic member list on the wall, there is a doctor, 2 assistants, and 2 nurses. A nurse saw Rudolph coming in and hurriedly said, "Sir, Dr. Doolittle is doing surgery, please wait." After that, the nurse also went into the operating room. Rudolph sat on a chair beside him and quietly observed the clinic. This clinic has only 2 floors, with 3 rooms on each floor. He is in the consultation room, one next to it is the infusion room, and the other is the operating room. The operation took a long time, but Rudolph was very patient. 3 hours later, Rudolph saw Dr. Doolittle come out. Even with a mask on, Rudolph could see the fatigue on Dr. Doolittle's face. "Sir, I'm sorry to have kept you waiting." "It's okay. It was a major operation just now. It took so long to come out," Dr. Doolittle said while washing his hands at the sink. "Yes, it's the cavalry of the Baron's castle. A foolish young man must use his young body to fight for a future. Young man, don't work so hard. If your body is in trouble, the rest of your life will become terrible, and it will only be a waste for those employers. Those employers will not shit and urinate in front of the bed. Now his waist is broken. Even if he is not paralyzed, the money he gets from his body is definitely not enough for him to recover from his injuries in the second half of his life. This is life. Yes, this is a bad life. After washing his hands, Dr. Dolittle asked, "Sir, what do you need?" Rudolph replied, "I am a volunteer at the poorhouse. I came to the clinic to prepare some cold and fever medicine for the poorhouse." "Oh, the poorhouse, sir," I said, "why are you so patient?" Dolittle asked a nurse to take the medicine tray and prepare the medicine. "Are you also from Thor Mining?" After hearing Dr. Dolittle's question, Rudolph was a little confused. "Thor Mining? No, I work at the relief home. I came to investigate and learn from the experience of the relief home in Gazay Town so that I can open a relief home when I return." Dr. Dolittle stopped talking. Rudolph felt that the atmosphere was wrong and couldn't help asking, "Why did you say I was from Thor Mining at the first time?" Dr. Dolittle lowered his head to write the medical instructions, and said without raising his head, "Only the upper class will emphasize that they are enthusiastic about charity because they have done too many bad things. Thor Mining funded the relief home. I think it's because they also have a little bit of conscience in their hearts. They need to use some charity to emphasize that they are good people. Charity provides an emotional value for those rich people. Therefore, they must let more people know that they are doing charity." Rudolph felt that the doctor had a bad impression of Thor Mining Company. Just when Rudolph was about to leave, a man entered the clinic. Rudolph had seen this man before. He was the miner Otto who he met yesterday. Otto did not recognize Rudolph. He sat opposite Dr. Dolittle and said, "You are coughing up blood seriously." Dr. Dolittle did not use any diagnostic methods, but just said, "There is no point in seeing you again. You have worked in the mine for half your life. You have severe silicosis, accompanied by tuberculosis and lung cancer." Otto's face did not show any sadness, as if he had accepted the reality. "Then should I quit smoking? You are falling from a cliff 100 meters high. At this time, do you still care about a small stone under the cliff? The harm of cigarettes can be ignored for you now. I suggest you smoke more. A good mood is more important to you now. I feel relieved with your words." Otto took out a cigarette, walked outside the clinic, and lit it. Rudolph looked at Otto's back and asked, "Why doesn't he leave the iron mine? It is said that the iron mine in Gazay Town is about to be exhausted. If he doesn't make more money at this time, what else can he do?"